Here's a strange thing that happens to a lot of people, and maybe it's happening to you right now. Your salary goes up. Maybe you got a raise. Maybe you switched to a better job. Maybe you finally started earning what you always thought would fix everything. And yet, somehow, by the time the next paycheck hits, the money is already gone. Not stolen, not lost, just gone. Absorbed into a life that costs exactly as much as you make, no matter how much that number grows. This isn't a math problem. If it were a math problem, more income would solve it. And for most people, it doesn't. Plenty of people making six figures are still living paycheck to paycheck, still carrying credit card balances, still feeling that same quiet panic every time an unexpected expense shows up. Meanwhile, some people earning far less have somehow built real savings, real security, real breathing room. The difference almost never comes down to the number on the paycheck. This is a psychology problem, and once you understand what's actually happening inside your brain every time money touches your hands, you can finally start doing something about it. So let's walk through why smart, hardworking, genuinely capable people stay broke at every income level, and more importantly, what actually breaks the pattern. Let's start with the mechanism that quietly ruins more paychecks than anything else: lifestyle inflation. Here's how it works. You get a raise. Your first instinct isn't to save the difference, it's to slightly upgrade your life to match your new income. A better apartment, a nicer car, eating out a little more often because you can finally afford it. None of these decisions feel reckless in the moment. Each one feels earned, reasonable, even responsible. But add them up, and your expenses quietly climb at almost exactly the same rate as your income. You end up on what researchers sometimes call the hedonic treadmill, always running, never actually getting anywhere, because the finish line moves every time you get closer to it. The truly dangerous part of lifestyle inflation is that it's invisible while it's happening. Nobody wakes up and decides to spend their entire raise. It happens one small upgrade at a time, each one justified on its own, until you look up a year later and realize you're earning twice what you did 5 years ago and somehow still have nothing saved. Picture someone who got a promotion, moved into a slightly nicer apartment because it makes sense now, started ordering food delivery a few nights a week instead of cooking, upgraded their phone plan, started buying the nicer version of everything at the grocery store. Not one of those decisions looks irresponsible in isolation. Stacked together over 18 months, they quietly consumed the entire raise and then some. Your bank account isn't broken. Your comparison point is. You're not comparing your spending to what actually makes you happy. You're comparing it to your own recent past. And recent past always loses that fight because you get used to more almost instantly. Now let's talk about the second force at work, and this one is sneakier: mental accounting. Your brain doesn't actually treat money as one single interchangeable pool of value, even though logically, a dollar is a dollar, no matter where it came from or what account it's sitting in. Instead, your brain quietly sorts money into separate mental buckets: grocery money, fun money, bill money, bonus money, and it treats each bucket by completely different rules. This is why a $200 tax refund gets spent on something fun almost immediately, while $200 from your regular paycheck feels like it has to go towards something responsible. Same amount of money, same purchasing power, completely different behavior, purely because of which mental bucket your brain assigned it to. Windfalls, bonuses, refunds, gifts, unexpected income get treated as extra, as if they're not real money with real consequences. And that's exactly why so many people can save diligently from their regular paycheck and still blow through thousands of dollars in bonuses without a second thought. The fix here isn't complicated, but it does require deliberately overriding this instinct. Treat windfall money with exactly the same seriousness you treat your regular paycheck, because your future self doesn't care which mental bucket the money came from. A dollar saved from a bonus builds wealth exactly as well as a dollar saved from your salary. The third force is one almost nobody names directly, but you've absolutely felt it: emotional spending. Money doesn't just move because of logical need, it moves because of how you feel in a given moment. Stressed after a brutal week at work? A purchase gives you an instant hit of control in a life that currently feels out of control. Bored on a Sunday afternoon? Scrolling turns into shopping because it fills the empty feeling faster than almost anything else available to you in that moment. Sad, lonely, anxious, even just tired. Spending offers a fast, easy, socially acceptable way to feel something different, right now, with almost zero friction between the impulse and the purchase. The problem is that emotional spending never actually solves the emotion. It just distracts from it for a few minutes, and then the bill arrives later, often after the feeling that caused it has already faded, which means you're now paying for a decision made by a version of you that isn't even present anymore to justify it. This is exactly why so many purchases feel pointless in hindsight. You weren't buying the object, you were buying a feeling, and the object was just the delivery method. Number 4. The "I deserve this" trap. This one hides behind something that actually sounds healthy on the surface: self-care, treating yourself, rewarding your hard work. And to be clear, none of that is inherently wrong. The problem is when "I deserve this" becomes the default justification for every single purchase, regardless of whether it fits your actual goals or budget. Worked a long week? You deserve it. Had a rough day? You deserve it. It's Friday? You deserve it. Notice that under this logic, there is never a day where you don't deserve to spend, which means the phrase has stopped meaning anything specific. It's become a blanket permission slip your brain hands out on command, precisely because it feels good to hear. The people who actually build wealth aren't the people who never treat themselves. They're the people who've made deserving something specific and occasional again, instead of a constant background hum justifying every transaction. Number 5, and this might be the most quietly destructive one: budget avoidance. Most people who struggle financially aren't avoiding budgeting because they're lazy. They're avoiding it because looking closely at the numbers is uncomfortable, sometimes even a little frightening. If you don't check your account balance, you don't have to confront how close you are to zero. If you don't track your spending, you don't have to face the gap between what you earn and what you actually save. This avoidance feels protective in the moment, like you're shielding yourself from bad news, but it guarantees the exact outcome you're afraid of, because you can't fix a problem you've deliberately chosen not to look at. Here's the uncomfortable truth, though. The anxiety of not knowing is almost always worse than the anxiety of knowing. Once you actually see the real numbers, even if they're bad, something shifts. Vague dread turns into a specific, solvable problem, instead of a formless cloud following you around every time you think about money. So why does your brain do all of this? Why is it built this way? It comes down to something pretty basic about how humans evolved. Your brain didn't evolve to optimize a 40-year retirement plan. It evolved to survive the next season, the next winter, the next threat. Immediate rewards were, for almost all of human history, far more valuable than distant, uncertain ones, because distant rewards required you to survive long enough to collect them, and survival was never guaranteed. That wiring hasn't updated for modern life. Your brain still values a reward today enormously more than an equal or even larger reward next year, which is exactly why saving for retirement feels so abstract and unmotivating compared to the very real, very immediate pull of a purchase you could make right now. Understanding that this isn't a personal failure, it's ancient wiring running into a completely modern financial system it was never designed for, actually matters, because shame doesn't fix behavior. It just makes you want to avoid thinking about the problem even more, which loops you right back into budget avoidance. So let's get practical. How do you actually work with this wiring instead of constantly fighting a losing battle against it? First, automate the decision before your emotions get a vote. Set up automatic transfers to savings the moment your paycheck lands, before you ever see that money sitting in your checking account. This single change bypasses almost every psychological trap we just covered because you're never in the room when the emotional decision would otherwise get made. The money is already gone from temptation's reach before your brain even has the chance to negotiate with itself. Second, give every windfall a rule before it arrives, not after. Decide right now, before your next bonus or refund or gift shows up, exactly what percentage goes to savings and what percentage you're allowed to enjoy. Deciding in advance, with a calm brain and no money currently burning a hole in your pocket, produces a completely different decision than deciding in the emotional heat of the moment when the cash is already sitting there. Third, build a 24-hour rule for anything above a certain dollar amount. Whatever number would actually make you pause and think. This creates exactly enough space between the emotional impulse and the actual purchase for the feeling driving it to fade a little, which lets your more rational brain finally get a word in before your card gets charged. Fourth, replace vague self-care with specific, planned self-care. Instead of, "I deserve this," functioning as a blank check available at any moment for any amount, decide in advance what you're actually treating yourself to and when. A specific dinner out once a month, one particular purchase you've been wanting, planned and budgeted ahead of time. This keeps the genuine reward intact without letting the justification quietly expand to cover literally everything. And fifth, look at the actual numbers on a fixed schedule, even when it's uncomfortable, maybe especially when it's uncomfortable. Once a week, same day, 10 minutes, no judgment attached to whatever you find. The goal isn't to feel good about the numbers immediately. The goal is to make looking a normal, boring habit instead of a rare, anxiety-inducing event, because familiarity is what eventually kills the fear. None of this requires willpower in the way most people imagine willpower working, as some kind of constant, exhausting battle against temptation you have to win every single day, over and over, for the rest of your life, until you eventually slip up because nobody wins that battle forever. What it requires is designing your system so that your default behavior, the thing that happens automatically when you're tired or busy or not paying close attention, is already the behavior you actually want. Think about the difference between someone who has to consciously resist ordering takeout every single night and someone who simply has groceries already in the fridge and a habit of cooking on Sunday for the week ahead. The second person isn't more disciplined, they just removed the decision entirely, so there's nothing left to resist. Will. Power is a limited, exhaustible resource that runs out by the end of a long day. Good systems aren't. That's the entire difference between people who stay stuck at every income level and people who quietly, steadily build wealth without seeming to try particularly hard at all. So here's the real question, and it's worth sitting with for a second instead of just moving on to the next video. Out of everything we just covered, lifestyle inflation, mental accounting, emotional spending, the "I deserve this" trap, budget avoidance, which one hit closest to home for you? Be honest with yourself, because that honesty is genuinely the first step. Drop it in the comments, because naming the specific pattern out loud is often what finally makes it possible to change. And if this actually helped you see your own habits a little more clearly, subscribe, because we're breaking down more of the psychology behind money, behavior, and decision-making in the videos ahead. See you in the next one!